Vultr uses Supermicro to run their servers, and we have a bare metal server running on their service. So to get started, go ahead and just click to Products, and then at the top right, you'll see a blue circle with a white plus. Click that, and you should see the screen. We are going to deploy Hyper-V on a bare metal Vultr instance. So go ahead and click that. Select New York. In parentheses, it says NJ. That is an abbreviation for New Jersey. It is pretty nice to select the New York, New Jersey location just because they have IP allocation space there, as well as typically they have more options. But anyway, click Ubuntu, then 20.04, and we're going with the cheapest plan here because it's running on solid state drives. It gives us 2 SSDs, which is nice. But if you wanted to do NVMe, you could, but this video is specifically only going to show you how to set up on SSD. There will be a separate video at a later date on how to use Rufus for NVMe, and we'll get into that, like I said, in another video. But no RAID is good here. We have the disks formatted and mounted. Enable IPv6. For the server hostname, just pick a subdomain and then a domain name that you own. If you want, click on Deploy Now, and your server could take anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes to install. No worries, just continue on. Now that your server is installed, it should be all ready to go with connecting via SSH, IP address, username, root, password. We're going to use a tool called Putty. It's Putty. If you open that up and we click copy IP, paste that in, hit enter, hit yes to accept that security certificate. The username, of course, is root, so type that, copy the password, Alt-tab back to it, right-click, enter, and from here, I'm just going to do an apt update. Actually, no, I don't. Well, it doesn't matter. We can, don't have to though, because we're not going to actually be on the system that long. But we're just going to wget the ISO that contains the Hyper-V, the Hyper-V core installation. So the ISO or ISO file is just now downloaded, and we're going to type the MV for move command and hit 1. That's the first character of the file. Hit tab and then type win.iso. What that's going to do is change the file name for us. That way it's easier to reference. Now we're going to install these packages because these could be required to work with WoeUSB. And then we're going to wget WoeUSB, and we are going to install it. And this is one package that I missed. I could have put this up here, but silly me, that's okay. So we have wimtools installed, and that is going to allow us to run the WoeUSB. Now, intentionally, I'm going to make this fail to show you what's going to happen, and that's because here we have already a mounted drive, and so if we type df, the df command, or df-h to make this human readable for us, we can see that SDB1 is mounted to /data, and then SDA1 is mounted to root. Now, you can't mess with a rooted or the root file system when it's mounted. I mean, you can't mess with it in a way where like you would write something like a bootable media to it while it's actively being used, because like the live file system, it's just not a good idea. It's not stable. It'll freeze up and just not go how you want it to at all. So I would recommend that we do not mess with the drive that slash or the root, the root of the system is on. So SDA1 we're not going to mess with. So yeah, don't mess with SDA in this case, because here we see this slash for mounted on. And then SDB, though, however, on the other hand, this is another drive. And what we could do, too, is like if you had SDA or SDB, we could actually cd into dev and then ls. And then since we know that it starts with SD, grep SD. right? So here we see SDA, SDB. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to unmount SDB1 since we saw that was the only one mounted, right, for that other file system. But anyway, we are going to type umount/dev/sdb1. It's going to unmount it. If we run that df command again, you'll see it's gone. Great. So if we run this command again to write, basically what this is doing is we're using WoeUSB to take this ISO, the Windows Hyper-V install, the installation media, and we are going to write this out to the dev SDB using an NTFS file system. So that should be done probably in the next minute. I'm just going to pause real quick though. Perfect, we are good to go. So you can just type reboot in there now that it's safely finished. And with rebooting, we are going to open up our console window for the server over in your Vultr control panel. And in just a moment, we should see the okay, so this is what the Supermicro looks like. And just go ahead and hit F11 quite a bit. Just tap F11 to invoke the boot menu. And we are going to use this UEFI OS. Just go ahead and press enter to boot to that. So from here, just click in anywhere and just kind of use the tab key a few times to tab down to next, hit spacebar to continue, hit spacebar again, and just hit the tab key, hit spacebar to accept, and hit the tab key and spacebar to next, hit tab, down to custom, spacebar. And here, this is the drive 0 partition 1. This is where Ubuntu is currently installed. And you can see that our Windows USB and the UEFI NTFS, these two here, these are actually the Hyper-V that's installed on this. But anyway, drive 0 partition 1 in this case, we'll see the type is system. We want to go after this here. And so go ahead and just hit the tab key, hit it again to delete, and hit spacebar there to delete it. Go ahead and hit the left arrow key, hit spacebar for OK. And then hit the tab key, tab down to new, and then hit apply and hit OK. So it's going to create some different system files. Perfect. So this is great right here. And now we can just go to next. Just make sure that drive 0 partition 4, that the large that new large primary is selected on drive 0. Hit next. This is going to install the Hyper-V server, and it may take just a little bit, but I'm going to resume in just a moment. So from here, if we go ahead and just hit the R key, it should just restart. Now, a good mention here at this point is if you keep hitting the delete key a few times. So yeah, here it will enter setup by tapping the delete key for this Supermicro. So under boot, you can see for the boot mode select, if we hit enter, you can actually toggle between legacy and UEFI. We'll just keep it dual. And here we can see the Windows Boot Manager is the first one, but you could of course adjust this as you would like to. And you can also go down, if we go down toward the bottom, there is actually these hard disk drive boot priorities here as well. So if you tap onto that, you can see you can toggle these back and forth if you wanted to. You don't have to. This is just kind of some extra tips or extra info if you're trying to mess around with some other systems. But anyway, everything should be good as is, so we can actually go ahead and just exit out of this. There we go. So we will see the first couple times that we boot up, it may appear like it flashes or it restarts, and it's totally normal. Okay, so on first boot, it's going to ask you here if you want to change it's going to make you change the admin password. Hit enter for OK. Just type in any password you want, and then hit tab down. Type it again to confirm. Hit enter. That should change it and set it. Hit enter again for OK. And in just a second, we'll be able to hit the 7 key to configure remote desktop. So just hit 7, hit enter, and then hit E for enable. And then we are going to hit 1 to allow the more secure authentication. Right. So that's all set. You just hit the space bar to continue there. And from here on, I'm actually going to just use remote desktop for this, so I can get the more full screen resolution and the mouse is not messed up, right? So for the username, it's just administrator. We're going to do log in, hit yes to accept that. Perfect. So I'm going to keep this over here for a second. We are going to set up the MSI, or we're going to get the MSI for the Windows Admin Center. So this is just a guide that I typically go by here. Set silently continue, but that's going to be a PowerShell thing. So, and I guess let's cd into temp. If we type dir, we should see that wactr.msi. Amazing. So we could change this port to anything else if you wanted. I'm just going to leave it to 443. But this is going to set up our Windows Admin Center on our Hyper-V host. That is going to allow you to manage the virtualization through a web control panel rather than using Hyper-V Manager, although you could do it through Hyper-V Manager as well if you preferred. Now, while we are at this, we are going to also get an Ubuntu ISO file. So to do that, we're just going over to get the download, and copy the link there. And we should just be able to do wget, paste in that link. I'm going to take this extra out, -use basic parsing, out file. I'm just going to call it ubu.iso. So if we do ls or dir, either way, we see that the ubu.iso is there, and we should be able to now connect in through the web control panel to manage Hyper-V. So I'm just going to copy the IP, go to HTTPS, the server address, hit advanced, continue. It's going to warn you that it's unsafe. That's just because it's an IP address and the certificate we've not got set up with the domain all signed and whatnot. You could do that if you wanted to with like Let's Encrypt even for free, but that's another day. So let's click into the gateway, And if we scroll to the bottom, we will see virtual switches. Click on that. We're going to click on New. For the switch name, we're going to do out. And for the switch type, we will do external. So at this point, we have to select the IP address that is public, and the public-facing IP address is this one. And I just know because if we look up here, we've got 149.28. Right here, we've got 149.28. So that's how I know. I've clicked it, and we are going to share the management OS, network adapter. So just click Save. It's going to start to create the virtual switch. And in just a moment here, it should be created. I'll just do a refresh to help it out, maybe. Well, while that's going, let's go ahead and set up the virtual machine. Click Virtual Machines. It's trying extremely hard to create that network adapter. Okay, cool. So we have that Intel external switch, the virtual switch, and now we're going to click Virtual Machines. And up top, click on Add, New. For the name, type UBU. Generation 2 is fine. Going to give it, 2 virtual processors is good. We could enable nested virtualization if we wanted to, but I'm not going to enable that. Startup memory, let's give it 6. And for the virtual switch, select that external virtual switch we created. And for isolation mode, we're not going to do anything. Add storage, select install an operating system from an image file, ISO, and browse. We are going into that temp directory on the C drive. So click C, click on temp, double click it, double click the ISO. And then it's also going to create an empty virtual hard disk for this. And realistically, we can give it more like 200 gigs if we wanted. And then click on Create. From there, it's going to create that system. It has, click on it, but do not start it yet. We're going to click Settings and click Security. We're going to disable Secure Boot because this is an Ubuntu image. This is Linux. We don't need to have Secure Boot for Windows on a Linux machine. We're going to continue editing, do Save Security Settings. We could also go over to boot order and just kind of look at this, make sure that's good. Yeah, we want the ISO to boot first. And yeah, this all looks good. If you wanted to go into advanced and configure like MAC address, that stuff, you could do that all right through here. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to go back out to our virtual machine and do power start. It's going to start that Ubuntu up. And in just a second here, we are going to be able to click on the machine that's running and click connect. From there, it will prompt you for your login, for your admin login for Hyper-V, and then check the box to confirm that certificate and continue. From here, we should just be able to click through to install Ubuntu. I'm just gonna keep it on English, continue through. I'm gonna go with a minimal installation just because it's quicker. And then we will erase the disk and install Ubuntu. We'll ask you to continue. Just go ahead and continue. Leave it at New York for the time, for the name. You can put what you want here. So I will continue. While that is going, we're just going to show adding an IP address. So we're going to click here and click Add Reserved IP. Go ahead and type New Jersey, since that's where we have the server location. For the type, IPv4, and for the label, you could type anything. So for example, if you wanted it to match your server name, you could type UBU or Ubuntu 1 or Jimmy server, something that you can remember and know kind of what it is. That way, when you're looking at it, you know what host it's affiliated with. And then you would click on Add. So once you would purchase an IP address, you would then come here to be able to manage the IP, and you would be able to attach it. We would attach it to that bare metal instance that we have, and by attaching it, we will then be able to use that IP address. We also here, we can see the reverse DNS. We can configure that, set that up, but that is kind of auto-populated. But we will be using this IP address, and this is our Hyper-V server. So let's just copy this. And with that IP address copied, I'm just gonna put that in here. So yeah, anyway, that IP address, let us do /32 for the gateway. I honestly, I've just worked really with OVH, so I've just known of them to use 254 here, like this. But anyways, let's go ahead and restart now. So the nice thing is that once you do this once, you can export out, you know, and then just import it in to change the network configurations. That way you don't have to do this every single time. You could even automate it with the template. But anyway, let's click through. And we are going to open up a terminal. And cd into etc netplan. And here you can see we do not have any network access, right? So, or whoops. Yeah, so we do not have network access right now. So we're gonna nano into this 01. It is important that you are logged in, or at least that you sudo, you know, with elevated rights to nano this. And we are just going to kind of copy over what this configuration looks like. So you can see for the renderer, we're going to use network D and F0. Actually, Ethernet F0, DHCP4, no, DHCP6, no, addresses 149.28.35.41/32, gateway 4, and really I don't know what to use here at this point, but I used this and it worked, so I'm just going to do it again. Name servers, addresses, and then we're just going to use Google and Cloudflare. Routes. The spaces are important too. The indentation matters. 32 via, whoops, scope link. So if we control O and then save that, then control X, we should be able to do, either type sudo netplan generate, or you could just do it without. So it wants that to be via, so error network definition. Unicast route must include both A2 and via. Okay, let me go back to editing that file. Okay, so we have routes 2, we have 2, via, got it. There you go. And then if we do apply, and we ping 1.1.1, that's Cloudflare, it's showing that. Okay. So this down here has to be a gateway for the route. Let's redo that. Generate and apply. Nice. Ping google.com. Now we can do apt update. And apt upgrade. And if we wanted to SSH into this machine, as an example, just to show that it will map to that IP properly, we can open up PuTTY. That did not work. Perfect. You'll see that in a second. We're just going to have to install the SSH server. So apt install open SSH server. Yes. Service SSH start. Now we should be able to connect to it. Yes. We'll install unmap. Oh. Now if we unmap localhost, see there is no port 80, so we can do apt install Apache 2 or Nginx, whichever you prefer. And now if we unmap again, we should see port 80 is open. And if we IPA grep inet, and we copy that IP again, we'll see that if we load that, it does actually work. So here we would be good to use this with Cloudflare. We could go ahead and add a subdomain that points here, but just to kind of showcase that this works, it's awesome. Holy crap.